Brief. Danny Berger here in New York. So we are less than a month away somehow from the U.S. election. I have no idea where the time has gone, but in this week's Election Brief, we're going to be looking at sectors that will have the biggest impact under a Harris or a Trump presidency. We are joined now by Nathan Dean, senior government analyst of Bloomberg Intelligence. Nathan, thanks so much for joining this morning. Look, it probably makes the most sense to start with tech because a lot has happened over the past few days. Mark Cuban, the surrogate basically for Harris, saying that Lina Khan should be gone from the FTC. The Democratic Congresswoman from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, tweeted this yesterday. Anyone who goes near Lina Khan and there will be an out-and-out brawl, and that she is a promise. She proves this administration is fighting for the working people. It would be terrible leadership to remove her. Nathan, as we understand the path for technology forward, you've done a really great job of basically running screens, what companies will and will not be impacted. How are we thinking about big tech as we head into the election?
So I think the current viewpoint is that no matter what happens in the election, at least for a short term, you're going to get status quo in terms of antitrust scrutiny and this heightened awareness of what's going on in the tech industry. Now, to Lina Khan's point, or Representative Ocasio-Cortez's point, we think that if Vice President Harris wins, Lina Khan probably will stick around for a while at the FTC. The reason being is that more than likely than not, or at least what the polls are suggesting, is the Republicans are going to take the Senate. And if it's the case, they're going to be able to jam up a lot of her appointees. And, at that point, if I'm Vice President Harris, why would I not want to spend, let's just keep Lina Khan where she is. So we think that type of scrutiny is going to continue. The big question mark, though, is if President Trump wins, because Senator Vance, the vice president candidate, came to the Bloomberg office a few months ago and called Lina Khan the best thing that Biden has ever done, and he even insinuated that President Trump should keep her on. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but if this idea of economic populism gets into the White House, you could see a tech industry that has the same level of scrutiny when a lot of folks out there, I think, are presuming that you may get a big business-friendly type Republican president. We just don't know. But what we are telling our clients is that, these court cases are going to continue. Probably if President Trump wins this well, you don't think you're going to see a dramatic change, but you need to be prepared for this tough scrutiny of the tech sector to remain for at least 4 more years, because it looks like it could happen.
Well, it's not even just tech that J.D. Vance had been aligned with Democrats on. I mean, he partnered with Elizabeth Warren on legislation around banks, trying to trumpet not just small tech, but small tech too. How should we understand the future for financials then, Nathan?
Yeah, so it's really coming down to this rule called the Basel III Endgame. Now, this is a proposal from the Fed, the OCC, the FDIC, which, as currently outlined, would increase capital requirements around 9% for the Bank of America, JP Morgan's, the big banks. The small regionals, you're looking around a 3 to 4% increase. Now, if Vice President Harris wins, this rule can continue. We think a reproposal is likely, probably next year. You're looking at finalization in 2027 or so forth like that, maybe the tail end of 2026. But if President Trump wins, this rule is probably indefinitely delayed. And the reason why this is important is because the Americans are the last piece of the puzzle to this. Europe has already implemented this via the Basel IV Accords, and the United Kingdom in particular has delayed implementation while the American regulators try and figure out what's going on. So if President Trump wins, those American banks probably won't get hit with that 9% capital increase, but you could see a race to the bottom across the globe as the global Basel framework, at least the last remaining piece of it, begins to unravel. So certainly interesting things to play, and this is one of the bigger catalysts of the election. Will it happen or will it not?
Nathan, if we could just round it out with the Inflation Reduction Act and what renewables will be doing. This is one of those sort of clean plays that people like to talk about in terms of the difference between Harris and Trump. What are you telling clients to watch out for in that sector?
Yeah, so this is going to happen in probably the tail end of 2025, and it's going to come as part of the tax reform debate we see here in the United States. If you remember, the Trump-era tax cuts for individuals expires at the end of 2025, and both Vice President Harris and President Trump do not want to see that increase for most of Americans. And the reason why the Inflation Reduction Act is here is because it's going to cost Congress somewhere between $3 to $4 trillion to extend those tax, that tax relief. And the Inflation Reduction Act could be a place for Republicans to go after in terms of cutting, tweaking, or help paying for it. Now, our base case scenario is because of a lot of the CapEx that's coming into the United States, into the renewable industries, so for companies like First Solar, combined with the fact that a lot of politicians at the state level in states like Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana are liking these plants coming in and being built, we think the IRA is somewhat cemented, even if President Trump were to win. But you're certainly going to see a lot of headline risk, and maybe about the emissions or EV standards and so forth like that. You're certainly going to see a lot of headline risk as people just ask the question, can we cut the IRA to help pay for this tax reform? Ultimately, we don't think it's going to happen, but certainly something we have to pay attention to.
Nathan, we really appreciate it. Nathan Dean, Senior Analyst for Government and U.S. Policy at Bloomberg Intelligence. Really recommend looking at his work on the Bloomberg. Okay, and other